Alright, and I think we're live. Yep. Uh, okay, okay, we're good again. Uh, Freaking internet problems. Yeah, if you experience any buffering or any like lag or drop frames, it's probably on my part. Um, I'm actually outputting at a higher resolution than I usually do, and that's more heavy on my internet, but it's actually less heavy on my PC, which was the problem with the previous stream when I was trying to do Arkham City. Is my computer just wasn't able to handle streaming that at whatever resolution I had, and whatever resolution I was trying to like output the game to, it didn't match what the settings were, and ah, yeah. So anyway, so this stream, I am just basically going to go through my creative process. I have, as I've opined on Twitter several times the last couple days, I have no idea what this is going to be like. So y'all gonna have to help me out here. Um, I got a bit of an outline of what I want to talk about, but first, some housekeeping. Um, in regards to the channel, things are going pretty well for me. Dropping frames like crazy. Uh, I don't know if that's like affecting you guys, but so on OBS, down at the bottom it has like your kilobytes per second, which right now I'm hanging out like 2600, which is pretty good. 30 frame per second. 15. It's using up like 12.4% of my CPU. I've been streaming data to YouTube for the last 16 minutes. Um, and I have 216 drop frames. I don't know how much that's affecting you, if YouTube's like fixing that, if I'm coming in choppy or whatever. You know what? Let me see if I can adjust something. I think the Wi-Fi card on my PC is actually starting to just go bad. I think it ever since I got it out of storage a few months ago, it's been kind of, my internet connection, like, I know I'm where it is right now on this side of me is like the worst spot for it to be when it comes to having a Wi-Fi connection, but it's also the only place where I can fit it with everything. I had it over here for a while, and when I was doing my Arkham Asylum streams, that's where it was. Um, and it worked better over there, but when it was over there, I had no place to put my mic, my camera, or my other like systems and stuff. Because I mean, I probably had a place to put my cameras and stuff, but when I got this mic, I moved it back over here, so that I could like so that I could talk into the mic, which is over here. It's let me actually show you guys. This is the mic that dude what the heck actually bought for me for my birthday. Thank you very much, dude. Yeah, it looks like everything's going good on your end. It still says stream status bad, but that could just be like a reconnection successful. Okay, had another technical hiccup there. Had another technical hiccup there. Um, the good thing is okay. I think I might actually be back, but it's not saying I'm back. OBS is saying I'm back, and now OBS is saying I'm not back. And now, okay, now I think I'm back for real this time. You know what I'm going to do? If it does this again, I'm going to lower the output resolution and see if that helps. Okay, so it looks like I'm still going good. Okay, so the thing about the YouTube algorithm is that YouTube kind of sucks a lot. Um, and so like I'm gonna use my JoJo videos for an example. So if you, so I upload the first JoJo video, I use like all these tags and stuff, and then later on, uh, I upload the second JoJo video with like similar tags. YouTube will actually filter that out of people's subscription boxes, the people who didn't click on that first JoJo video. Like I got a comment on one of them being like on one of my videos saying like I didn't even know you did a JoJo video. It didn't pop up in my subscription feed. That's why like for the channels you like, um, for the channels you like, for the channels you want to support, make sure you're supporting them. Like I'm not asking for money. I mean I do like ping my Patreon and the credits and stuff, but I I mostly just do this for me. Just to put my opinion out there and you know, get my own ideas out there and maybe make a name for myself so that when I do have my own published book, I can actually like sell it. Okay. For a second there, YouTube said I was like good, like in the green, but OBS said I wasn't. OBS and YouTube need to like I don't know what kind of relationship drama they have, but they need to like work out their kinks, um, and start communicating properly. So on to the actual writer's workshop, and again, I have no idea how this is gonna end up turning out. Um, so before I do that, let's see if there's any questions in the chat. Da, 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 da. Yeah, a lot of the comments are just like, "Hello, what's up?" and complaining about the stream crashing or frames being wonky. Hopefully, my internet's good for the night, though. Hopefully, it had its hissy fit, and it's done being temperamental. Karen Porter said, "So what everyone been doing to celebrate Power Rangers Day?" I'm not a Power Rangers fan, so nothing. Uh, as for my favorite bullshit holiday, ah, hmm, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. I don't. I would have to actually look up like major BS holidays. my personal favorite is Pi Day. Like, unironically, I like Pi Day. I like how punny it is, and any excuse to eat pie. Uh, so I think that's it for questions for now. But I kind of, God, I'm dropping frames like crazy. I've dropped over 4,000 frames in minutes. You know what? You know what will probably help? Uh, I'm going to switch scenes. I'm gonna go here. So this is what I'm actually looking at right now. As far as everything goes. But I am actually going to delete that from the thing, and I'm going to see if that helps. I'm going to see if that was like OBS's problem. Is that I had the two different scenes. So I had one of just me on the camera, and then one with my like desktop background and stuff. I think that helped a little bit. Media streaming. The whole stream is just about the life, the the like health of the stream for an hour and a half. Just trying to get it to be stable for a few minutes to get a word in. Uh, so I'm going to pull up that doc on my phone so that I'm not using any more internet than I have to, because my phone has unlimited data, so it doesn't affect my Wi-Fi at all. So the first question, okay, I should probably go through my credentials. Um, as a writer, uh, I've been creating characters and stories for as long as I can remember. It actually started with like my imaginary friends. I was one of those kids who had imaginary friends, but I was one of those kids who had like the really boring imaginary friends that were just like, uh, it cut out again. Check the stream health again. Okay, I think it's actually good. I think YouTube's just being dumb. Let's see. I've been creating characters and stories. Okay, I was checking the stream on my phone to see if it was actually working, and it seems to be working fine. Um, yeah, it just said YouTube just said that I had uh no data coming in to YouTube, even though according to OBS everything was working fine. So anyway, I was one of those kids who had the really boring imaginary friends that were just like normal people because I was a loser with no friends, so I imagined like real life people as friends. Uh, Not like real life people, but like I made up my own real life people. They were named Max and Andy, and I would talk about I would talk about like they would go on all these adventures to like the on like safaris and like to Africa and India and Brazil, and would come back and they'd tell me their stories, and then that's how I knew everything. Even though the real reason why I knew everything about those places is because I was a nerd who had like animal cards and would I would read science textbooks for fun. That's how much of a loser I was. Um, Yeah, and that's how boring my imaginary friends were. Is that they were basically just explorers doing boring thing, doing. Well, I wouldn't call like going on safaris boring, but like you think of imaginary friends and you think of like, you know, like in Foster Some for Imaginary Friends with all the like wacky creatures and uh like things that just absolutely don't exist. Um and so that was kind of where it started. After that, Star Wars was a big thing. When the prequels were coming out, like I would imagine myself in those scenarios, and I would like kind of role play as a Jedi in real life. I would be like a LARPer. Um, am I still dropping frames? No, no. I'm actually getting frames back. Hmm. OBS is so weird. And I have made hundreds of stories probably, but the only ones that I've released in a format to where you all can view it are my Ruby fan fictions, which range from really bad to actually kind of creative. Um, Guardians of Terra, which I basically stopped, even though I really want to do more with that setting and with those characters. And I have so much planned out in Guardians of Terra. I only got through like the first part of the first arc. Uh, and and, and lost my train of thought because I was reading a chat. Uh, okay, I didn't want to burp into the mic, but I had to burp there. Uh, and the other than Guardians of Terra, the other one is a short story called Roads. Now here's the thing about Roads. It's a story I've had like in my head since I was in middle school, and to this day I still have not found a way to adequately like make it interesting. It's basically a monster story, coupled like a monster like kind of old fashioned Wolfman type horror story mixed with the kind of like detective drama that you see in like a Sherlock Holmes. I wanted to blend those two genres together. Like that was the whole point of that story, and I still like, even in its as to date final form, which you can find on FicFun. Um, I think it's ficfun.net. I'll put a link in the description or in the comments after the stream. Um, I don't think it turned out very well. I don't think it turned out very good. I think I ended up rushing a lot of things and not really knowing where to go with the detective aspects. Uh, and, and Ruby On has gone on way too fucking long. Um, I checked it. I checked it at one point. It was over 1 million words, and that was several months ago. I've made several 5,000 plus word chapters since then, so it's well over 1 million words total throughout all the stories. And I don't really want to get into like how that story got so out of hand. I could, um, but let's pull up that doc again, because the first question you got to ask yourself is, why are you writing this? And for me, it was kind of a coping mechanism. It was kind of escapism. It was a way to pass my free time because I'm a spaz with the attention span of a gnat, and so it would literally be something that I'm just like playing in my head as I'm pacing around my backyard or pacing around my basement. Like you can't see it because of the blanket, but I have a pretty open basement down here. That's really good. Like, I'll just walk back and forth. Uh, that's actually kind of how I, um, not to get too far ahead of myself, but that's actually how I do action scenes. Is I'll just stand in the middle of a room and kind of like imagine it as the setting of the action scene, and like pace back and forth, like get that kind of spatial awareness. It's a very kinesthetic way of writing. I don't do that for like every type of scene or even every story, but I do that for the action scenes. Any action scene that I write. Garen Porter asks, so how do you make people cry with your stories? That's a character thing, I think. Like, trying to think. Also, the stream is not, or my preview of the stream is not doing well. There we go. Oh, I know why I wasn't doing well. It's because I switched to docs, and because of the way YouTube works, this playing in the background while I'm looking at the doc on my phone. Uh, stories can be very manipulative, and I think they should be. I think they should be at to some extent emotionally manipulative. But instead of just laying on the drama, instead of laying on the melodrama, instead of laying on like the bad circumstances, I don't think you have to. I think if you just make it about a character and their struggle, and if you succeed, the audience will latch onto that and feel what they're feeling. Um, so perfect example of this, and I alluded to it in my most recent video, Phoebe in Wonderland. The character Phoebe Lichten, I'm not gonna spoil it, but she has actual like diagnosed mental issues that she struggles with, and that or undiagnosed mental issues that do get diagnosed by the end of the movie, and that's kind of like what she's dealing with. Again, I don't want to get too much. Um, when they actually decided to like cite a specific issue, like cite a specific mental health problem, like super specific, like super long Latin word specific. Um, that hit me, and the fact that she actually likes being labeled because and you learn about the I learned about this as well in special education, which is part of the field I'm in education. A lot of people, particularly people with like autism and stuff, um, they like having those terms that they could fall back on. They don't like just being called mentally challenged or mentally disabled or mentally handicapped. They want something specific because that specificity helps them cope and helps them like deal with people and helps them communicate their problems to people. Like like I have several autistic friends that are like, yeah, I suffer from Asperger's syndrome. It is something I struggle with. It is why I struggle to like have those relationships and have those like and come across the way I want to come across. Wow, this is see Phoebe in Wonderland is just an emotionally heavy movie for me. It just hits me right where I live. In the saddest scene, and I showed clips of it. I showed like little clips of it in my video. Um, is the thing they probably had to because that's all they could afford. Like even I'm able to have like Premiere Pro. Um, so it's like it's a Halloween. She gets like kind of terrorized by this older person who's just kind of being a douche, and she's like, I hate Halloween. Then it cuts to her in her bedroom, and she's screaming for her mom, which is something I relate to, seriously, because growing up when I was that age, I had a lot of health problems. It wasn't asthma. I don't actually know if I ever knew what it was called, but I had to have like a rebreather, like this this mask thing that I would have to put on my face to help like clear my lungs. Um, Thankfully, I grew out of that really quickly. By the time I was like 6 or 7, I no longer needed that and I could breathe fine. And I still get like sinus problems though and stuff. Um, it's why I breathe through my mouth more than my nose. It's because I literally just have those kind of breathing problems. Um, this is getting really personal. Oh man, I was not planning on this. I was planning on this getting a little personal just because it is about my creative process, but I wasn't planning on it being this personal. Um, but back to Phoebe in Wonderland. In that scene, she's like crying for her mom. She's scared she had a nightmare or whatever, and her mom's like comforting her. And then, her mom sees her knees, and her knees are like all scabbed up and bloodied, and it's something that had been like coming up throughout the movie before then. Um, she'd like jump stairs and like fall and hurt her knees, and her mom's like, Phoebe, I thought we were done with that. I thought we were done with the stair stepping things. And Phoebe's like, I can't help it. I don't know why I do the things I do. And she says something along the lines like, I want you to know why I do the things I do, but I don't know. Um, and that's like the most heart wrenching scene in that movie. Just that desperation of like not knowing what you are, not knowing why you feel the way you do, and how crippling that can be, to someone's like emotional growth and development. That's why like I always use specific terms when I'm addressing people. Like I'm not afraid to call someone autistic when they are autistic. Um, because in my experience that actually helps. It also helps with writing. I found a way to bring this back into writing. Okay, being like specific with your characters and being specific with what they are dealing with. Um, Gonna read the chat now that I've brought it back into writing. Uh, Thoughts on Matt Smith starring in Star Wars Episode 9? Cool for him. Um, I mean, he was in Terminator Genesis, and that didn't do him any favors. So hopefully this one does. I'm really hoping that. I'm wearing a Star Wars shirt right now. I hope Episode 9 is good. I want every Star Wars movie to be good. Uh, but they're not. Getting West. Any tips on writing action scenes? Um, I mean, I already told you like how I go about it with actually like being very kinesthetic with it and actually like kind of planning things out. Um, you know, watch action scenes, take inspiration. It's fine to take inspiration from other action scenes that you like. Uh, just be ready for the backlash when people say that you're ripping such and such off, especially when you're really open with it. Um, like like Ruby is actually very open with how much they take from Final Fantasy Advent Children, which is a movie I kind of despise. So it's an easy thing to be like, haha, I'm better than you, Miles and Carrie, because I don't have terrible taste in anime. Um, Keeping everything in mind, and again, like I think the most important thing in an action scene is why are they fighting? Why is this action even happening? And I also think that action doesn't necessarily have to be a fight. I think action is any of the exciting bits in a story. For instance, like a courtroom drama, the action is when the two lawyers are arguing. In in like in a comedy is like the chase or the monster like that explosion of like fear. Uh, Go back to the chat. Roberto Maldonado said, "What do you think of the Last Jedi?" I think it deserves most of the hate it gets, but I think a lot of the people focus in on things that aren't even that bad. We did a whole podcast the week it came out, and my opinions have not changed much from there. I'd probably lower my score from a 7 to a 6, or maybe even a 5, just because it doesn't hold up on repeated viewings, but I feel the same way about it as I did the first time I watched it. Which is good, not great, has a lot to be desired. And the fact that the worst thing about The Last Jedi is something that every other Star Wars film has done really, really well. Even like Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith. Like the side quests in The Last Jedi are the worst part of that movie. But the side quest in Attack of the Clones is actually like the best part. And so it gives this like really unflattering comparison when Attack of the Clones did something better than you, haha. I think Last Jedi is an overall better movie than Attack of the Clones, but Attack of the Clones did do that thing, that one aspect, very, very, very good, very well, and way better than The Last Jedi did that same kind of aspect. Devin Holmes asks, how important to you is character design in a visual medium? That's actually a good way to bridge into character creation, so I will address that in a few minutes. Because it's not the next thing on my list, but it is the thing after that. So, so after asking yourself, like, why are you writing this, which for me is, like, it's fun, it's my way of expression, it's how I cope with the stress of my day-to-day life. Start with the core idea. The core idea could be anything. It could be a concept for a character. It could be a plot structure. It could be a genre. It could be a monster. It could be anything. Start with that core idea and let things grow naturally through just brainstorming. Brainstorm, guys. Just brainstorm your stories. Not everything is going to stick. Not everything is going to hold up in your own mind before you apply pencil to paper. For instance, in Ruby On, there was a team that was called Team Lancer. That was in the original outline for Ruby On. They have never appeared in Ruby On. They were in the original outline, and I've never used them. I've used like one or two of their names, because I thought their names were pretty cool. Like a white rabbit faunus named Talk. Jervis Clog, who is I'd like that name, Jervis Clog. I've used that in several different stories. And so that Team Lancer, like, they never appeared in Ruby On because after thinking about it again, the entire concept of the team was really, really dumb. And outside of like a tournament arc, there would be no need for them, and Ruby on Veil never ended up having a tournament arc. Other stories did, but by then I had like better ideas for characters. And so a lot of those character concepts got like repurposed and reused later on down the road. I just had different names and different teams for them. I'd have to go all the way back into like my notes to give you like the more specific like the evolution of those characters. But a good example is actually one of the like a fan favorite character in Ruby on Veil, character by the name of Rubrum Snaps. So Rubrum Snaps, his original name was Michael Rojo, because I'm actually not that good at naming characters right off the bat. It usually takes me several different iterations before I come up with a name that sticks. And Michael Rojo's power, he had a flamethrower that turned into gauntlets. What his weapon was, and his semblance was going to be like explosions. Like he was going to be able to plant like aura landmines, basically. And it's a good point to crack open a cold one. That ASMR can crack. Mm. So then, as I was outlining Ruby on Veil, I was like, I don't like this character. I didn't like Michael Rojo. I didn't like the name Michael Rojo. It was such a dumb name. So I changed him to Ginger. His name was going to be Ginger Snaps, because pun. And when I changed him to Ginger Snaps, like, that's such a lame name. I'm gonna make this character kind of lame. I'm gonna make him like the weak link on the team. I'm gonna make him like the nerd, the kind of like a Jean, but not a leader. Like, he's just the science guy. And so the team name was going to be Argent. But then I found out, because I wanted it to be a word for gold. But I found out that Argent is mostly associated with silver. So I changed the team name to Team Arany, which is I think it's the Hungarian word for gold. And on that point, I changed Ginger Snaps into Rubrum Snaps. So you could be that second R, and Rubrum is the Hungarian word for red, so it kind of fit. And that's the character that played a major role in Ruby on Veil. So I would start with the core idea of a character. Think of like what their wants and needs are. What do they want? What do they need? Come up with the backstory that would like inform that, like, why do they want it? Why do they need it? And then if you're doing like a Ruby thing, come up with like a power set that would match that. Like, what kind of power set would someone have? Or you could go the opposite direction, like think of their backstory and like, okay, now what would they be like because of that backstory? Or, hey, I have this like cool idea for someone with a such and such power. Okay, what kind of person would have that power? What would the backstory of someone with that kind of power be? You could start anywhere. Just, you gotta start somewhere, though. Start somewhere and then grow from there. Um, and design is usually the last thing I think of. Um, and a lot of times I have a hard time actually, like, I'm not good at describing things. Especially like appearance things. A lot of it has to do with like, I have really good vision, but when it comes to like judging distances, I kind of lack. Like, I could not look at my screen and tell you how far it is away. I think maybe, I don't know, 2 feet. It's about arm's length away from me. But I don't know. It could be 1 foot for all I know. It's just, I have a terrible eye for judging distances, and I have an even worse eye for judging weight. I never give a weight for my characters, because I have no idea. Like Nova Wukong is 5'6" and athletic. How much would she weigh? I don't know. And it's just, I don't want to like lowball her. I don't want it to be too high. I want it to be realistic, but it's just, I don't have a good eye for that kind of stuff. And so I kind of leave a lot of those details out of my story, and it actually makes my writing flow a lot better, I think. When you're describing a character on a non-visual medium, it's good to like latch onto like one or two visual details Like, usually I go hair color and eye color. Hair color, eye color, and overall, like, color scheme. Uh, for instance, my OC, Nova Wukong, um, she wears a lot of, like, purple and black. She has a lot of purple and black. She has, like, amber colored eyes, black hair, a monkey tail, um, and she's really cool looking. And that's about as far as I ever describe her. And occasionally I'll be like, she's wearing this, she's wearing that, and I do that for like atmospheric reasons. Um, and uh, and so like character design for a visual medium, especially animation, is super important. I want to do a video just about character design. Dogs are barking upstairs, but we'll power through that. Um, because I'm not even sure if you can hear them. And in animation, the main difference I found between Western animation and Eastern animation, and I've alluded to this on like Twitter dozens of times and Discord dozens of times and on Facebook, and I've probably mentioned it on podcasts and stuff and talk about like character design. Um, is that Western animation tends to focus more on movement, on the actual animation part of animation. Um, and so they a lot Western studios tend to favor the more rounded, soft designs that lend themselves a lot better to the exaggerated movements that are required in animation to get the point across. Whereas Eastern animation, like in Japan and anime and stuff, they tend to be focused more on like details, like what a static keyframe would look like, and just filling it up with detail. And detailed characters do not look good in animation. What proof? Look at Berserk. Any Berserk anime, especially the 2016-2017 really awful CGI one that makes Ruby look like a Pixar project. But even like the older, like it was 2003 anime where they really had to simplify Guts' design just to make it look remotely good. And a lot of that has to do with the source. A lot of Western animation is original. A lot of those stories are made with animation in mind, whereas a lot of anime is based on manga or light novels, which are a visual medium, but they're also a static medium. It's all just still frames, um, and so like they can put a lot more detail in that because they don't have to worry so much about how that looks in motion. Like I'm reading One Piece right now. I'm finally getting around to reading One Piece. I gave up. I gave up on the anime a long time ago, years ago, um, because it was just too abysmally paced. And I've always had the intention to go and actually read it because I love that story, I love that world, I love those characters. I just can't stand the anime. Uh, so I've had every intention on reading it. And I finally broke down and be like, you know what? I'm spending hours a day just staring at my phone anyway. Why not use that time to read One Piece? And I've actually really been liking it. I'm not past the point where I was at in the anime when I dropped it. Um, as I stream this, I'm in the like Don Krieg stuff where Sanji first comes in. But I really like how soft a lot of those character designs are. A lot of them have a lot of visual detail too, but Luffy himself is actually a very simple character, and it's kind of this charming appeal of the story that Luffy is basically a Looney Tunes character dropped into an anime. Like he's literally rubbery. He's basically indestructible. He does like a lot of cartoon physics as opposed to anime physics. He's got a very like a very Chuck Jones type rounded character design. Chuck Jones is probably a bad example. Max Fleischer. He's more like a Max Fleischer cartoon. And I'm really loving that. And you know, One Piece needs its equivalent to Dragon Ball Kai because the pacing is just abysmal. So yeah, character design and a visual medium really important. A lot of things can get, a lot of things can come across just at a glance of a character. You can get with a good character design, you can tell a lot about the character just by looking at them. Uh, and not just their design, but also their key poses. Um, I think this is something that Paul Dini talked about behind the scenes of Batman the Anime Series, but like how every character in Batman the Anime Series has like their key pose, that their default pose. Like Batman's always like kind of stoic, like looking down with his chest out, fist clench. Joker's like much more hunched over with his smile, hands in his pockets. Two Face is always like really rigid and stiff and has one hand out flipping his coin. Stuff like that. Like you can get a lot about a character across. You can get a lot of things across in a visual medium without uttering a single word. Um, this is an Alfred Hitchcock quote I always go back to when it comes to visual mediums. A good movie slash TV show slash cartoon. Um, you'll know it's good if the sound could go off and the audience still has a pretty good idea what's going on. That's how you know that you. That's how you know you're using the visual medium to its absolute potential. Okay, G-Man-Q said that's why Dead Fantasy suffers. No context behind the action, blah blah blah. Kitty Kirishima asked, question for when I go back to watch this. You write at an incredible rate most of the time. How do you keep yourself motivated? By wanting to get it done. I've been very like apathetic towards Ruby on the last couple months just because it's been going on for so long. I've been working on it for over 2 years now. Um, and that first year I was doing like a chapter a day. And a lot of it has to do with me just wanting to get it done. Like just begin with the end in mind, have a goal that you're working towards, and then get through all that stuff. Like that's what I do. I try to get through all that stuff as fast as I can. That's one of the reasons why Ruby on Home has been taking so much longer than my other stories, on top of like personal life situations and not having the time to write that I did 2 years ago. And on top of those chapters, the Ruby on Home chapters just being much, much longer than chapters in my other fics. I kind of designed Ruby on Home to last forever. Because I wanted it to be, when I first started, I wanted it to be the story I could always go back to when I had ideas for Ruby on. But then as I took a step back early on in that writing process and coming out with that first arc, and I kind of looked at Ruby on as a whole and was like, this needs a definitive ending. This needs to be it. This story needs to be the end. I need to work towards an ending. Now, how do I get there? How do I end this? And so a lot of Ruby on Home has been written by the seat of my pants, a lot more than my other Ruby on fics where I began with the end in mind. And it was just by design. And now I just want Ruby on to be over. I want Ruby on Home to be done. And I want to move on to other things. I want to move on to my original stories that I have planned that I really would like to talk to you guys about, but I don't want to because I don't want... I trust you guys enough to, like, not steal from me, but you never know. You never know who's going to end up just hijacking your ideas because you told them. Archon of Plagueis. So we're talking about writing literature or animation. Writing in general is just my creative process and just shooting the shit. I still have no idea. We're what, like an hour into this now? Yeah, we're about an hour into the stream and I still have no idea what this is gonna look like. Because I've never had this kind of open-ended discussion like this where I would just constantly talk by myself. Um, I'm kind of thankful for all the streaming problems I've had because it's been able to like give me like little breaks where I could like pause and think like, okay, when it comes back, where am I? What am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing with my life? um, yeah. I want to get this. Kid Wakanda said it's the silhouettes. Most really good designs can be recognized as a shadow. Yes. I don't think they have to be, but it is really good. It's a good sign. It's a good sign when you can do that. Um, Again, like when I do my own like scripted out, well researched, not just spouting off the top of my head, video on character design. Um, I'm actually going to use Goku as a really good example. I think Goku, even though his character design is completely unrealistic with his hair and stuff, I think it's kind of the perfect character design. I think it's the perfect blend of like the kind of high detail art you see in anime and the kind of fluidness that you see in Western animation. The problem is that Toei is really cheap and that they cut a lot of corners and that they invented ways to cut corners. Toei is like the Japanese Hanna-Barbera. They invented brand new ways to cut corners that everyone else has been following ever since. Uh, so a lot of the Dragon Ball's problems are just budgetary issues, and Toei will always be Toei. Uh, like when I was watching Dragon Ball Super and noticing all the like repeated frames and repeated animation loops, and I'm just like, I'm fine with this because it's Dragon Ball, and that's just part of Dragon Ball's identity at this point. Like, I'd 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 be like hashtag not my Dragon Ball if those corner cutting routines weren't there. You know what I mean? It's kind of like as much as I want Ruby to be better animated, the whole like teleporting characters thing is kind of almost part of its identity at this point. To where it's like, wow. To where if there's ever a fight scene where characters aren't teleporting, and be like, wow, this is not like Ruby at all, and it just like whiplash. Just I could like my shitty animation sometimes. Uh, Devin Holmes asked, "How is your Jean different than Miles in your work, man?" Jean is actually more of a main character in Ruby on. A lot of it has to do with the fact that I'm a Lancaster shipper, and so I made Lancaster like the main romance in Ruby on Veil, and even like Ruby on Generations and Ruby on Home spends a lot of time focusing on Ruby and Jean's kids. I make him more of a good leader. I tone down his like goofiness, like he's kind of socially awkward and stuff, but he's kind of like awkward in the same way Ruby's awkward. But he's actually like I make him like actually really good leader, and I make him like much aware of his flaws. Like he knows his limits more than any of the other main characters do. So he's like so his role in a lot of those arcs is he's the one who like he grounds Team Ruby. And some reconnection successful. Is it though? Is it successful? Because YouTube's saying it's not. Okay, there we go. No, that was my fault. I was actually typing like, oop, we just had an internet drop, and by the time that I had it typed out, it was back. So, yeah, it takes me forever to type. So we should be good now. Back to Jean. Um, forgot what I was saying. It's it's kind of hard for me to remember because Jean hasn't been very relevant in my stories. After that first year. Like he kind of had his arc. He had his kind of happy ending. He had his kind of like comeback in Ruby on War, but even that was almost 2 years ago at this point. Um, like I think I wrote Ruby on War in October of 2016 was when I wrote that story. Um, so it's kind of harder for me to remember like everything I did with Jean. Um, I know I made him kind of like again like he's more aware of his flaws than Ruby, and he's much more grounded than Ruby, and he helps ground Ruby a lot. Uh, that brings me to another question someone asked. Oh, have you watched Cells at Work? I watched the first episode. Not bad. I kind of like Ozzy and Drix with waifus. Um, although it is a little odder than Ozzy and Drix. The sense of humor is a little more like violent with all the like bloody stuff in it, whereas Ozzy and Drix was a lot of fart jokes. Um, but the fact that the cells and stuff look like normal people, just something offsetting when they're bleeding is like, do they have tiny like red blood cell waifus inside of them? Because that's kind of hot. Uh, um, yeah, I do plan on watching it when the season is over. I checked out the first episode when it came out. Like, this is something I can watch. I like my educational anime and educational cartoons. That I love ours. I love Dazzy and Drix. I'd totally be down for more of that. Uh, Getting West asks, how do you do romance and writing? There's no big secret. Um, I just do what comes naturally. Like going back to Lancaster, I knew I was going to have Lancaster as the main ship by the end. Um, and I didn't want to do anything that Kishimoto did with Naruto. I didn't want for them to have barely any interaction, and then at the end it's like, oh, and by the way, Ruby and Jean are together at the end. I didn't want that. I didn't want to spend. I don't like love triangles. I think love triangles can be good. I think they can be interesting, and I like watching them. But I like watching love triangle stories, but I don't like writing them. And it's the whole will they won't they thing that annoys me. I don't like the will they won't they storylines. Um, so I'm usually pretty definitive. Like, these two characters are together now, and I try to make them act like people in a relationship. Like, reconnection successful. Okay, I'm going to assume it was successful. Okay, yeah. Huh. I'm going to just actually have it typed up on my phone that be back in a minute. Because by the time I type that out, it's always come back. Um, anyway, so Nova and Johnny, I really like their relationship, and it's something I didn't even plan. It's something that just kind of happened with their dynamic and how they played off each other. Nova tsundere. Johnny's like, he's nice, but he's also kind of like, he's arrogant. In Ruby on Generations, anyway, he was arrogant, but he didn't realize he was arrogant. He didn't realize, like, how much of an elitist he sounded like. And, I mean, OBS is still saying it's good. Da, 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 da. Am I? Okay. OBS didn't draw it. It was YouTube. That was YouTube's fault that time. because everything was going fine on OBS. Um, but yeah, that relationship just grew really naturally out of their like dynamic and stuff, and how Johnny just really wants to help people, and he wants to save people. There we go again. Okay, Johnny just really wants to help people, and they're both kind of like obsessed with their past, and that's something that they have in common. And something they also have in common with Prim, Ruby and Jean's second oldest daughter, um, who is like one of the main characters in Ruby on Home. All three of those characters are kind of like they have issues with their past. Nova has issues with her past because Blake is her mom, and Blake was like very neglectful. She would leave on these missions for days, weeks, months, even a year plus at a time. Um, and she'd come back and be like, "I'm sorry, I was gone for so long, but I had to do it. I was the only one who could do it. I'm the only one who could get close to those people, but they're done now, and I'm never going to leave for that long again." And then a few weeks later, she'd be gone for even longer. Um, and like that cyclical nature just it tore away at Nova and just eventually just broke her. One Blake broke Nova's heart one too many times, and Nova was just done with her. Um, and then on the opposite end of that relationship, you got Johnny, who is obsessed with the Lightbringers. He thinks that Lightbringers were this really important organization that he's destined to like recreate the Lightbringers and lead them into a new era, and as their leader, and he's gonna like reestablish them, and it's like the super important thing. But then when he finds out what the Lightbringers actually were, which were basically just librarians, it like really fucks with his head that he's been obsessing with this all his life, in that it was basically just a pointless freaking organization that never needed to exist. After like they expired, they just outlived their usefulness, and that's why they went away. Uh, and that like really eats away at Johnny, and it's in that they really just bond. That they really bonded for me. It was at that point that I was like, they were already in a relationship by the time I brought that bomb. But when I came up with that bomb, when I was like, this is the direction I'm taking the Lightbringers, I was like, Johnny and Nova need to end up together. That was when I decided that. Uh, Another good example is Penny and Rubrum. I had no plan on doing it. I just wrote that scene, turned out really cute, and I was like, I ship it. This is a thing now. Because Rubrum is way into machines, and Penny just so happens to be a machine. There was like I didn't even plan it, which actually brings me to another point I wanted to make in the stream was theming. I don't think you should start a story at the theme. You can. It's worked before. There's good stories that have started off with good themes and then built stories around those. But I think it's better to start with the story and characters first and let the themes be a natural byproduct of that story. Themes will always come out in a story. You can have themes without a story. You can't have a story without themes. You make a story, there will be themes. Even if you didn't plan on it, even if you didn't intend on it, even if you didn't even think about it, those themes will still be there. And there's a lot of that in my writing. There's a lot of themes that I plan, like with Legacy and Destiny, and kind of flipping the Chosen One narrative over their head, which my feelings on, I don't like Chosen One tropes. I don't think anyone actually likes Chosen One stories. But I've always wanted to take one and flip it on its head, mostly by just having the choosing be done by somebody in the story. Like, you get all these stories with these prophecies and these chosen one stories, and none of them ask who's the one who prophesized this. Who's the one who's doing the choose? You're the chosen one. Chosen by who? Who chose you? That's a question that like I always try to answer in my stories when I bring up a chosen one. Like Nova became the Summer Maiden. Why? It's because of her passion. It's because of her vacuum pride, and like that. It's because she had all the personality traits that that the Summer Maiden spirit is attracted to. It had nothing to do with being in the final thoughts. Because she wasn't in the final thoughts of the previous Summer Maiden. The previous Summer Maiden kind of dropped the ball on that, and so no one knew who the Summer Maiden was for a while. But then Nova showed those powers and was like, "This is why. It's because of your person. It's because you have all those traits that the Summer Maiden is attached to." Same thing with Prim. Why was Prim chosen to be the guardian of Remnant? Because Abraham said so. Abraham is the one who does the choosing. He's the one who picks the guardians. He's the one who picked Prim. And he picked her because of her strength. He picked her because of her semblance. He picked her because she has silver-eyed warrior blood, but doesn't have the silver eyes. And that creates, like, that's a very opportune situation for the way they were doing things in that story. Um, And, I'm gonna read comments again. What's a book or story you regret reading? For me, that was Stephanie Meyer, Twilight. It was terrible, but I did it for the AR points in middle school. I've never regretted reading a book. Mostly because I don't read a lot. I sound like an idiot saying that. I don't get around to reading a lot. I don't have the attention span to actually like sit down and read a book. I don't have it in arm's reach, but back there behind the couch bed, I have a couple books that I've started on that I've been like, I just haven't had the time to have the time to actually read. Um, there's this Viking book that I read in high school. I think it was just called Viking. That I didn't end up digging very much. Jane Eyre. I read Jane Eyre in high school. I didn't get much out of it. I kind of regret it, but it was still a good story, and I like having the bragging rights of like I read Jane Eyre in high school because I'm apparently a girl now. Apparently, like every time I say that I've read Jane Eyre, people just give me like weird looks, because it's not the kind. Okay, we should be back now. I was taking a drink and missed that it dropped. I think on the Naruto question. Not the Naruto question, the Naruto comment or whatever. Okay. Then my favorite begin. Oh yeah, beginnings. So I think endings are more important than beginnings. Um, it's a little different with TV shows because TV shows with syndication and scheduling stuff. Um, that I don't like taking an entire show and then judging it on its merits because things change. Uh, things change throughout the broadcast throughout the years that a TV show can go on. Um, so that's why I take seasons and try to judge like the individual seasons when I'm judging a TV show. So for a TV show, a strong beginning is much more important than it is in like a movie or a video game because the ending is what's supposed to make it all worth it. Is what's supposed to make the journey all worth it. Uh, but in the beginning, God created the heaven. About to quote the Bible on you guys, but in the beginning of a story, having the characters have a goal that they're working to right out the gate, it does so much for getting the audience invested and making them stick through it thick, then just look at One Piece. One Piece has like almost 1,000 chapters now, and it's all guided by one sentence: I want to be king of the pirates. And then it's just go from there. And it's still like the biggest manga of all time. It's still like topping all the charts and Shonen Jump's history, and it's insane how long Oda has maintained that story and those characters with just that one goal. And Naruto, to a lesser extent, I think Naruto just had identity issues later on with not knowing if it wanted to be JoJo's Bizarre Adventure with ninjas, or if it wanted to be Dragon Ball Z with ninjas, or if it just wanted to be Dragon Ball. If it just wanted to be straight up Dragon Ball. Whereas One Piece, I don't think has the same identity issue. I don't know. I haven't gotten that far in One Piece yet, so I'm gonna withhold judgment on One Piece until I get, 700 chapters in, which is how long Naruto ran, and then. Okay, I had another technical hiccup there, but Sailor's plan in Ruby on Veil is that she wants all the power. And so Salem. Oh, and that's right. In Ruby on, you can actually simulate people's semblances using special kinds of dust. Like if you take for instance, who's someone with a really defined semblance? Okay, so for instance, Ruby. If you were to take nature dust and lightning dust and fuse it together using DNA samples from Ruby as an adhesive, you can create a special kind of dust that simulates her semblance. That, like, you inject it in yourself or inject it in someone and they'll have the same kind of scattering speed. I don't think I use that enough, because something that I feel like every time I bring it up, it's like, oh wow, yeah, this is a thing that's weird and also a major plot point for most of the story. And so Salem actually did that with her semblance, and then that's what Cinder's glove was. So Cinder's like little glove that she uses to steal the Fall Maiden's power, that was actually a glove that had the special like Salem semblance dust in it that allowed Cinder to actually like use Salem's semblance as her own. And I do that with several different weapons. Like there's someone who had like a semblance that can pierce through aura, and so I make like these anti-hunter bullets that are made out of his DNA. And so Salem wants to build these people up so that when she steals their power, she can steal their entire power and become even more powerful and become basically God, the God of Remnant. And that's her goal, that's her motivation. That's why she keeps Ruby alive for so long in that story. Griff said, I have to read Hamlet in L Arts class. Hamlet's really good. I really dig Hamlet. I really dig Shakespeare. I've read a lot of his plays. I won't say I've read all of them, but I have read a lot. My personal favorite is The Tempest, because I feel like The Tempest has a really good, involved plot with a lot of different characters, with a lot of different motivations and stuff, and none of them are dumb. Like, the thing I don't like about a lot of Shakespeare stories is that a lot of the characters are just dumb, which, I get it, it's realistic, people are dumb, but it's a little more interesting to read when all the characters are, like, somewhat intelligent. That's why I really like The Tempest. Devin Holmes said Ruby said she wanted to be normal and go to school to be a hero with superpowered hunters. Oh, good. God, I don't know what they're going for. I actually think Ruby predates My Hero Academia. Like, I think the first episode of Ruby came out before the first chapter of the My Hero Academia manga. But it is very much in that My Hero Academia vein of everyone's super... pretty much everyone is super, therefore nobody is. My Hero Academia is basically Syndrome proven right. It really is. It's basically the same world as The Incredibles, like several generations down the line when everyone has superpowers and almost nobody is normal anymore. Uh, da, 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 da. Nora Wiley said you should watch the night first part of the vampire series made by a YouTuber. I don't know. Okay, y'all talking about the night, right? I guess. I don't know what y'all are talking about because I've never heard of whatever you're talking about. I've never heard of it. Um, I feel like I got something in my eye. It's just really irritated. Ah, goodness. Sometimes I think I just need glasses, even though I have like perfect vision. Um, so I'm gonna see if there's anything else on the list that I haven't addressed. Creating character development. Oh, so this is something that it's doing a character arc is really fucking hard. And it's hard for me. Um, it's really hard. So when I'm creating a character, I try to think of one aspect of their personality that will never change. Their fatal. It doesn't. It could be a fatal flaw. It doesn't have to be a flaw. It could be just a character quirk. It could be a speech pattern. It could be something so that no matter where the character goes, no matter what the character does, they have some kind of consistency and they never feel like they're out of character. Like with Ruby, it's her optimism. With Jean, it's his like self realization. With Yang, it's her it's actually her big sister complex. Like that never changes about her, no matter how far the story goes. Like even when she realizes that like Ruby has far surpassed her and that Ruby no longer needs her, Yang basically just goes to the next person and adopts them as her sister. She adopts like Kurome as her sister. She adopts Blake as her sister, um, because like it's just such a core part of her personality that she's the big sister type and that she wants to protect her little sister, even if that little sister is technically older than her, or if that little sister is more powerful than her, or if that little sister is not at all related to her whatsoever. Um, and so I think that helps define a character to have that like trait that never changes. A lot of the other things can change. And okay, so because the thing you have to remember is that characters are people, assumingly. There's some kind of person or personification of something. And people are complex. People don't completely change. People don't do complete 180s. People don't turn into a completely different person just because something happened. Uh, but people do change, and one way they do change is with their relationships. One way they do change is with um, the way they interact with people. Uh, and so one thing I try to map out with every character is where they stand with every other major character that they're going to be interacting with. So on that front, I think, and I keep bringing her up, but I think, in fact, you know what? I'm going to actually bring up a picture of her. Give me just a minute. She's actually in the thumbnail, but I want to give you guys some visual aid so that you know who I'm talking about. Okay, so this down here, so this down, yeah, I'm pointing to it now, is Nova Wukong. I've talked about her a couple times already in the stream. Um, and if you're just now joining us, she's the daughter of Blake and Son, and a part of her, the core part of her personality is her anger, the way she kind of lashes out at people, um, and a lot of that has to do with how neglected she was by her mom, how heartbroken she was by every parental figure in her life. Not just her mom, but her dad was also like, she kind of sees her father as a disappointment because he's too strict and overbearing on her. Um, and you know, she was also disappointed with Yang, who was like kind of her Uncle Crow. Yang is the one who trained her, but then Nova found out that Yang had been lying to her a lot, and that Yang did know a lot more about where her mother had been, and just wasn't telling her. Um, and okay, it was like disconnecting, reconnecting. Like every time I would talk, for a sec, for a minute, for a couple seconds there, it would just be like every time I would go to talk, it would disconnect. Like, oh, okay, it's back. Oh wait, no, now it's gone again. Now it's back. Now it's back. Yeah, I have no idea what that was about. Uh, so the only time that I have any kind of like pictures of my characters that aren't like this are when attempting to reconnect. Yeah, so her relationship with Ruby is like very respectful, very almost like mentor student, but actually more like idol and fan. Like she's kind of a Ruby fangirl. Um, but then you got her more troubled relationship with her mom, her kind of like awkward relationship with Yang because Yang's been like a fixture in her life, and there's implications that like at some point Nova said something along the lines of like she wished Yang was her mom, or Yang said something along the lines that she wished Nova was her daughter, and it just kind of made their relationship a little awkward in some spots. Then you got her relationship with Johnny, which started off very like adversarial, very like rivalry based, because Nova's goal has been to be the next Ruby, be the next Ruby Rose, be the most powerful huntress of her generation. And Johnny was the first person to be like in the way of that because Johnny was stronger than her at the start of Ruby on Generations. He's nowhere near as strong as her now, but so they were kind of like adversarial, or she was adversarial towards him at first. He was just trying to be a good team leader and be a good friend to her, but she wasn't having any of that. Um, and then she's got kind of this best friend relationship with Ruby's daughter Citrain. She has this intense hatred and rivalry of Prim, who is Ruby's other daughter. She's got almost like this kindred spirit relationship with Chinzy, which is Nora and Ren's kid. Um, and, there's very few people that she's actually like super respectful around. She mostly just acts like she's the strongest person in the room because she always is. She is one of the strongest characters in all of her Beyond at this point, and she knows it. And where I'm at in the story now, like she actually just had one of the. She just recently had one of the most crippling defeats she'd ever had at the hands of like a freaking god tier monster. Like that's what it took to knock her down a peg. But in that like defeat, she actually like kind of like rejuvenated her. She had actually been in like this funk about being the strongest, almost like a One Punch Man situation where she was kind of bored of being the strongest and like trying to find a good rival, but like none of the rivals were like stacking up. And now she has rivals that can stack up, and now she has something more tangible that she could work towards again. And so her character's kind of going through like a renaissance. Um, Devin Holmes asks, in your story, did you give Cinder a reason for why she's so obsessed with power? Ooh. Cinder, one of the characters who has gone through the biggest arc in Ruby on. I give Cinder like a really edgelord backstory. For real, like she grew up in an abusive house, um, neglectful parents who would like just abuse her, and she'd have to like run away, run into town and beg for food, beg for money just to survive. Um, she was basically she tried to basically like she tried running away to an orphanage, um, like that kind of stuff. And Salem saved her from that, so her and Salem had this like very mother daughter relationship, and Salem kind of like just manipulated her and filled her head with all the talks about like destiny and stuff. And Salem is actually telling the truth. Cinder is actually like trace her lineage back thousands of years, and her family used to be the ruling family in Mistral, like long time ago, like before the Great War, long before the Great War, um, and so Cinder wants to get power to rule the world because her and Salem are kind of like the same in that. Okay, and we're back. So Cinder and Ruby had a much more like respectful relationship where they both they come to terms with the fact that they would not be as strong as they are without that rivalry. Cinder would have never pushed her powers to those absolute limits if not for Ruby always getting in her way. Ruby would have never gotten as strong as she had she not like felt the need to be able to beat Cinder. And they ended up like being like dead even. Ruby was like Cinder is stronger. Cinder is physically stronger, smarter, like just a more tactical fighter, better with dust and stuff. Whereas Ruby's just faster and more creative with her power. Like she's doing stuff that Cinder would never think of on her own. Cinder's much more straightforward. Cinder likes using like swords and dust blasts and magic blasts, whereas Ruby will like use her Spring Maiden magic to manipulate her rose petals and use them as. Okay, where was that at? Angels of Death? No, I haven't watched it. I have a long list of things I need to watch. I'm still like trying to get through Clone Wars. When I have the time to actually like sit down and watch TV. And after that, I need to rewatch. Well, not so much rewatch. I need to watch the rest of Neon Genesis Evangelion before Jinlock comes out. And then after that, Floof, the Floof artist, has been trying to get me to watch Revolutionary Girl Utena. He's been trying to get everyone to watch that. GMAQ said if Ruby became a pessimist by the end of the series for good reason, would it ruin her character for you? Yes, because that's so the opposite of what she is. Like again, like I this is what I do when I'm creating semblances for Ruby. So sometimes I start with the power and be like, okay, what kind of person would have the personality to have that power? Other times I have the personality first and then I come up with the power around that. But when I do it like that, well, either way I do it, the part of their personality that their semblance represents is that unchangeable aspect about themselves. Like Weiss will always be a Schnee. That's why she has the Schnee semblance. Ruby will always want to be the hero. That's why she has a semblance that allows her to be the first on the battlefield. Nora will always be the one to like be the energy of the room, and that's why she has the electric semblance. That was the reasoning I had for that. That was the reasoning I gave for that semblance. Yeah, man, your computer is having bad connection. Try tweeting memes at your internet provider. It works for Vine Sauce. Uh, Potato Lamb said, wait, who Jean hook up with in this? Jean hooked up with Ruby. I guess you missed that part. Um, Gideon West asked, how do you avoid Mary Sue's? By trying not to contrive my way out of problems. I try to always find a creative solution to a problem. Or sometimes, they just overpower them. Sometimes I just flip the switch and be like, okay, Nova shows up and she just melts them all. Which, is realistic because, again, Nova's just that powerful. And it's really, she's defined as that powerful. And a lot of Ruby on Home, they're fighting, like, common crooks and criminals and stuff. And so it doesn't really work for every single one of them to be a good physical challenge. But I try to have, like, more cerebral challenges. Like, I took a lot of inspiration from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure when creating a lot of the villains in Ruby on Home. Like, there's some of them that have powers ripped straight from JoJo's. There's someone who could, uh, I basically have my own version of Darby the Gambler. I had someone with like camera powers that could like trap people inside pictures. Um, huh. So anything else I wanted to address? No. Beginning with the end in mind. When I'm outlining a story, I try to treat it. I treat Ruby on kind of like a TV show, where it has its arcs, and the arcs are always kind of a set length. Not so much chapter length, but like a chapter, like a episodic length. Like I try to go like 26 chapters per arc, and I always like plan it out like, okay, here's the major beats, here's the minor beats, and okay, I think I'm back now. Um, I plan I have like, okay, 26 chapters in the arc. Here's the major beats, here's the minor beats, and then here's kind of like the padding to help bridge the gaps. And that's how I outline an arc, and then I'll outline an individual chapter when I get to it, and have like cover everything that was in my outline for that point. Potato Lamp, how about powers from Keijo? Keijo is the gift that keeps on giving. Except it doesn't keep on giving because it's done. It was only one season. I miss Keijo. I miss Konosuba more, but I would totally be down for a Keijo season 2. Uh, actually, as far as like outlining a story goes, like it really depends on the kind of arc. It really depends on like there's really just two approaches to anything. Like there's going outward and then going inward, starting with like the broad idea and then getting down to specifics, or starting with the specific idea and growing it from there. A lot of times, and a lot of video game people do this, where they'll come up with like the action set pieces first and then kind of build the story around that. There's nothing inherently wrong with that so long as you do it well. Again, like it doesn't matter where you start. It doesn't matter what the core idea you start with is. What matters is that you develop that idea and not just tacking things onto it, tacking other ideas onto it that don't gel well with it. Uh, Noah Wiley asked, "Have you seen?" I think I already addressed Angels of Death. Um, my internet might have cut out there though, but no, I haven't seen or heard anything about it yet, other than you in the comments section and chats and stuff. Yeah, I just don't have the time to like get into something like that. Um, takes me. I have a hard enough time getting motivated to actually like work and do school stuff. Uh, yeah, that's kind of everything I wanted to address as far as like my creative process. Um, when I sit down and write, I usually I already have everything I'm going to write outlined for that chapter. It takes me with Ruby on Home. It takes me 2 to 3 um, writing like I'm trying to think of the word sessions. It takes me 2 to 3 writing sessions to actually like finish up a chapter. But I'll have it outlined before I start that. I'll be like, okay, this is where it begins, this is where it ends, these are the characters involved, this is what they're doing, and I'll have in like 3 to 4 words per plot point. I try to do with Ruby on Home like 10 plot points, 10 scenes, at about 500 words each. Sometimes shorter, sometimes longer. Um, Sometimes I'll like cut a scene out or add a scene in as I'm writing it because it's just how everything is flowing. Um, a lot of it's written by the seat of my pants. Like that's why I can't like think of specific dialogue or specific action beats without rereading it because a lot of that stuff I make up as I go. A lot of those smaller things I make up as I go. Um, and like I'll literally just sit down on my computer. I'll get on like Discord and listen to anyone talk, or I'll put some music on YouTube. Okay, yeah, that was another YouTube, or not YouTube, but another OBS just kind of crapping out on me for a few seconds because my stream status with YouTube was good the entire time, um, or functional the entire time. Um, it just went down to 0 kilobits per second on OBS. Uh, anyway, when I'm doing like a romance scene, I listen to like Owl City or Queen, or I listen to like pop music. When I'm doing an action scene, I'll listen to like the Naruto soundtrack, the Dragon Ball soundtrack, anime openings. Um, like right now, one I'm really digging is Make My Story, the new opening for My Hero Academia. Like that, it really just gets me pumped up to write the big battle chapters that are happening in this arc. Um, and of course, like Ultimate Battle from Dragon Ball Super is just mm, a godsend. The lyrics are like really corny if you translate them into English, but plausible deniability sounds good, so it sounds good, therefore it is good. Um, yeah, and that's it as far as music goes. I have been told that I should like put the music I listen to when I'm writing a chapter in the author's note of a chapter, just so that like it helps my readers. But I've only been told that by one person, and sometimes I will like cite a specific song, like if there is like music within the chapter, um, I'll be like, this is the song that they're listening to. I remember I did a dance, like a prom in Ruby on Generations, and there's a lot of like kind of pairings. Uh, there's a lot of like pairings dancing, and I had like a different song for each pairing, and like Citrine and Johnny was Fearless. Citrine and Ice was If My Heart Was a House by Owl City. Um, uh, Johnny and Nova. I don't think they actually had a dance at that because I'm pretty sure Nova was just like not in a dancing mood. She kind of like took the Ruby role of just being a wallflower. Um, uh, Noah Wiley said, "What school are you in? High school or college?" I'm in college. I'm 25 years old. Um, I go to UMSL. Uh, just University of Missouri St. Louis. Which, fun fact for you gaming people, that is actually the same college that Greg Miller of IGN fame attended. Greg Miller is also like a St. Louis boy. And I found that out because there's like a brief like 2 month period of time where I actually liked IGN and I watched their Beyond podcast, which was their PlayStation podcast. It was Greg Miller and Colin Moriarty, and Greg Miller would wear like an UMSL shirt, and I was like, I go to UMSL. He went out, huh? I like him. I like Greg Miller. He's spineless. I don't like everything about him. I think he's kind of a sellout, but actually no, I think that's a little too harsh. I don't think he's actually a sellout. A lot of people in the gaming press are sellouts, but I feel like Greg Miller is actually he really is that much of a fanboy. He's not getting any special checks from Sony to make him say that, although Sony is not above doing that. I think Greg Miller is actually kind of genuine in his admiration for Sony. He is a Sony fanboy. They do exist. So I've been going for about 2 hours now, which is longer than I thought I was going to be able to stretch this out. So while my stream status is actually good, I wanted to kind of take a minute to kind of pitch some things to you, like a what if scenario. Like, what if I were hired to write, and I'm going to use this as an example, Batman. What if I were brought on to Warner Brothers to write a Batman movie? That would never happen. If it ever does happen, I will keep this stream in mind. About an hour 51 minutes into the stream, 2 hours on my time. But if you're watching this back in the future, how does it feel to still not have flying cars? My pitch for a Batman story. Here's the title: Batman, World's Greatest Detective. There's your pitch. Too many of the Batman movies have not had that detective aspect. We've seen him as a superhero. We've seen him as like a crime fighter, as a ninja, as a vigilante. We've seen that. Bring back the world's greatest detective. That's the kind of Batman I would want to write. With Superman, I would want to focus on the Man of Tomorrow aspect, where he's the beacon of light. I would really do a lot more with the kind of ideas that were in the Fleischer Superman, where he only comes when he's absolutely needed. That's actually all I had in mind for now. I was kind of hoping that you guys would like maybe ask me questions like that. So yeah, so to recap, gonna go back through my notes. You gotta ask yourself when you plan on writing a story, you gotta ask yourself, why am I writing this? What's the core idea that is at the heart of the story? Is it character centric or is it plot centric? Which I don't think I explained that. I think I kind of skipped over that and went straight to creating a character. So character centric and plot centric are the two types of stories in my mind. Plot centric is basically you start with the events first and then come with the characters second. Like you start off with like, okay, I want to do a heist thing. Here's how the heist plays out. Okay, what kind of characters would do those heists? What kind of characters would stop those heists? How do those things clash? Whereas character centric is, okay, there's this guy he's really good at. He's like a action star. I want to do a movie about like a super spy, or I want to do a story about like a super spy who's really good with math and numbers. Okay, what kind of story could you tell with that kind of character? What kind of, like, where would he excel? How could you make conflict for him that he has to overcome? That's basically how character centric and plot centric work. creating a character, again, like, don't be afraid to change your characters, but try to keep one aspect of them constant, because because that consistency, that constant thing is what's going to, especially when you're doing a TV show, because that's what the audience is going to latch on to. You can start with like the idea. Again, you can start with the idea, character centric or plot centric. You can come up with like the concept and then work out the details later, or you can start with a single detail and then find out like how that would affect the story. Begin with the end in mind. Before you write your first paragraph, you need to know where you're taking the story. Plot out your action. Again, like what I do is I actually do plot it out. I'm very kinesthetic with it. I actually do kind of map it out in my head while I'm wandering around in open space. You don't I prefer stories that don't like start with their themes. You can. It's just a lot harder and it's a lot more apparent that you're just when you start with themes, you kind of turn into a propaganda piece. Like, that's actually what I'm worried about with Genlock. It is that they're starting with the themes in Genlock, and it's gonna end up making a lot of things seem unorganic. I could go on and on. I'm not gonna crap on Genlock. It hasn't come out yet, but I'm ready for it. I try to go on with an open mind. I try to go in. Okay, one last reconnect because I'm wrapping it up. Thank you all for watching me just ramble for 2 straight hours. I've never done anything like this. I'm probably never going to do anything like this again. It's going to be a long time before I like have something that I could ramble on about for 2 hours straight. Without like, I do want to do something like because this kind of started with like I had 3 ideas for a makeup stream after last time, and this actually tied with a discussion on Batman the Animated Series. I do want to do that eventually, but that's going to be more like I want to download those episodes onto my computer and be like actually like going through it and being like looking at the details and the overall thing, almost like a reaction, but not like a post reaction, like a discussion, where I'm actually like showing it on my screen and stuff, which that's I'm gonna have to finagle around with my internet to get something like that to work. So I'm kind of glad that this ended up winning the tiebreaker on the Discord. Potato Lamb, I haven't been keeping up with Genlock. What themes are you talking about? Oh, the entire thing is a big allegory for cultural warfare, and Grey Haddock came up with the idea 2 years ago, and according to the Collider interview, now the political climate has begun. They used the word begun unironically there. Begun to reflect the themes that Grey Haddock came up with the story, but one problem. It's what year is it? 2018. 2 years ago. Okay, let's do some math. 2018 minus 2. That's 2016. What was going on in 2016? Oh yeah, the election, the most contested presidential election of all time. That's where they're going with this story? That's what they're a big allegory for? Oh, the bad guys are going to be Trump allegories. Calling it now. God. Yeah. Not looking forward to that. Especially since pretty much everyone at Rooster Teeth, outside of like Joel Heyman and maybe Jeff Ramsey, are like just a bunch of freaking socialists. other housekeeping thing, Devin Holmes just asked, have you seen the Nomad Weirdo? Again, I haven't watched it since the first block ended. I think they only have one episode out that I haven't seen. I haven't seen it yet. Um, I'm waiting. I'm waiting to watch all that stuff until like Volume 6 is about to come out, and I'm going to like get a month of Rooster Teeth first, so that I can watch Ruby when it first comes out, and then get like a month free trial, and then that's when I'm going to catch up with. That's when I'm going to watch the rest of Chibi Season 3, Camp Season 3, and the second half of Nomad of Nowhere Season 1. So, it's current year. So until next time, I'm Mediaocrity 4. Thanks for watching.